Today I'm here to talk about Shadows Upon Time by Christopher Ruocchio, the 7th and final book in the Sun Eater series. Now, in this video, I'm going to start out completely spoiler-free, and I will give you clear warnings towards the end of the video where I get into some light spoilers with a graphic on the screen. So if you have not started the series, I will say you're welcome to watch the beginning of this. First off, if you are interested in this series, I have done a full series review, or at least up to book 5 at the time I had read, and then I did a follow-up video talking about book 6, and then this video will round out my content with a review and wrap up of book 7. And so if that all sounds good, let's get started. So first, to talk synopsis, I can't talk about this book, but I will instead talk about the first book, which is Empire of Silence. The very basic synopsis is that we follow a man, Hadrian, who is recounting the story of his life. You find out at the beginning of the story that he has earned the reputation of being the Sun Eater, and that is slowly revealed what that entails over the course of these books. It's told in the first person, close perspective, so he is very much telling us his feelings as he's going through the various steps of his life. In the first book, you follow him as he has to work his way up into a better position, and then the story progresses from there. The first books in my mind are very close in terms of the scope. There's few main characters and so forth, but as the series progresses, it becomes much more of a space opera with bigger stakes and so forth. This book series has been compared to things like Dune and Star Wars, and while I don't know if they personally, for my taste, live up quite to that hype, they definitely are in that same sphere where they are science fiction that also has elements of sci fantasy and very much dive into deep storytelling with a core main character and watching his progression as he goes and fulfills what appears to be his destinies. So that's a basic synopsis, and for those of you that have not yet read book 7 but are curious on my general thoughts on it, I'll keep this completely spoiler free, try to avoid any hints and so forth, and let you know that overall I enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It wasn't a 5-star read for me, but for transparency, I haven't given any of the previous books 5 stars, so it's very consistent with my own personal enjoyment. And overall, I'd say in terms of the writing, the characters, the plotting, all of that is very consistent and largely consistent with the later half of the series, where again, in my mind, it moves more into that space opera feel where you have a vaster set of characters, higher stakes, and so forth. I think that the ending is what the author was building towards. It was what I was personally expecting from this series, and I did get that. And so if you enjoy the previous books in the series, I do think it's worth continuing on. And generally, I suspect most people, as they finish the series, will be really happy with how it concludes. That's all I can say without getting into spoilers, so I'm going to leave you all here. Before you click off this video, a couple things. If you can give me a big thumbs up, drop an emoji in the comment, just lets YouTube know that you're here. And even if you're exiting the video early, that you enjoyed it. And even better, if you just want to put me on mute and let the video run, that really helps me out as a creator. But regardless, hopefully you come back when you finish the book. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments down below. Just make sure to mark with spoilers, because again, there's going to be people watching this video who have not yet read book 7. And of course, we want to make sure that everyone reading the book gets to experience it without getting spoiled along the way. All that being said, spoilers in 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so we're officially into spoilers, although I will say that I'm probably going to talk more in terms of my general feelings rather than going plot point by plot point. I'm not someone who really enjoys doing book summaries on camera, and so I'll generally say that I was happy with this book. I think that the author gave me the ending I expected to get from this series. I think from book 1, again, we knew that he was a Sun Eater. We knew generally what he had done, and so we kind of watched him do what he was going to do. I mentioned in my previous video where originally I thought that Hadrian was going to be much more of an anti-hero, and at least at this point in the series, thankfully I'd kind of gotten that idea out of my head, because I was really attached to it in the earlier books, and from the synopsis, how everyone always pitches the first book, I thought it was really about this destruction of a man, very much an Anakin Skywalker type of plot. And instead, while he has to do terrible things, there are sacrifices and tough choices. In my mind, his morality, his sense of good and right stays intact, and he very much is wounded and hurt by the tough decisions he has to make along the way. So while I knew he was going to progress and again have to become the Sun Eater, even in those decisions, he was very much conflicted. He tried to minimize the loss of life. He really tried to, again, protect those that he could, but understanding, again, in any kind of case of war, that again, sometimes sacrifices do end up being made in a kind of utilitarian perspective. And so coming from that line of thinking, you can see that at least the decisions he made were not made with malicious intent behind them. And so I thought that that was very much on brand for his character. And again, you keep seeing his humanity. You have him talking about the deep love he has for his family and how that really drives him. So he continues to be very human. So often with this series, and that's really why it's not 5 stars for me, is that the whole series as a whole plays it safe, because if you're going to have an entire series surrounding this one individual, I personally, and this is completely personal taste, not really meant to be a knock on the book, but just being honest about what I look for in stories, is that I found him to be a simpler man, which meant that the entire story felt simpler just even looking at the series as a whole, because again, you have someone who rose into a position of power, had to make tough choices, and did the best he could. And I arguably could summarize that as a really loose overview of the series, and instead I would love to see more internal conflict along the way, where even when again we hit some of the critical climaxes of the story in terms of the tough decisions that we've been waiting to see unfold, the conversations around them in my mind felt easier than they should be. That being said, again, I think a lot of people reading this are going to be really happy with it. As I mentioned, I still gave it 4 stars, so I'm very much nitpicking on a story I generally enjoyed. It's got a vast cast of characters. You really get to like and appreciate those that are surrounding him. And one thing I really enjoyed with this book, and I thought it was clearly meant to be a nod towards where the ending was going, is you have that early narrative shift where the narrative shifts away from Hadrian, and it kind of, to my mind, was giving us the permission, the idea that us as the reader were not solely tied into his perspective, his insight, and that we were going to have potentially the ability to see the story beyond his personal recollection, giving hints that again the story is being told from an outside perspective, as again is revealed to the end. And so we have the backstory, understanding that someone is very much collecting his writing and putting this together for us to then read, which is generally I think what I thought the whole story was going to be about, and other people thought too. I did make a comment during my series review, which again was all supposed to be spoiler free, saying that we generally knew that Hadrian was safe because of the fact that we were telling the whole story from his perspective. And people did comment saying, oh, well, what if he's not alive at the end of the story? But what I meant is just, you know, he doesn't die in book 3 or book 4, etc. And so he kind of has to have plot armor for the rest of the series, and it's really only up until the end of the series where he does die. And again, it's the only place that it makes sense for him to die given that narrative style, which is exactly what happens. And so again, I didn't necessarily feel a big emotional loss at that point because it felt like the ending we needed to have. I'm not saying it was a mistake for the author to do that, but it wasn't necessarily the emotional gut-punching moment that other books have, just because it wasn't that unexpected piece. It felt like the natural conclusion to the series. It did feel like the right choice, but it's always a challenge where even if the author is making all the right steps, if I can see those steps coming, does it somewhat diminish my experience with the book? Maybe, maybe not. Overall, I think that this book, again, and the series is well written, is well put together. It is a series that arguably had to grow on me. I enjoyed this one so much more once the story opened up and it became not just about Hadrian himself, but the larger world, because again, I think that he is a bit of a straightforward character in terms of his motivations, us getting to see the story from his perspective. He's relatively easy to understand, and so I more was interested in what was happening around him and wanting to see again the larger epic story unfold, which I think we got overall. So it is the kind of ending where I found myself flipping, looking for extra pages and looking for something extra that we didn't get. And so that's always a sign for me. And again, it's just based off my personal nuance when it comes to rating and reviewing books in terms of my own enjoyment, that I did find myself wanting a little bit more from this book, and a little bit more again just to punch it up to that 5-star ending, the kind of ending that I just can't stop thinking about. And instead the story, again, because it was predictable, it was safe, I don't have as much lingering thoughts about it because I don't have as many questions as I finish up the story. I'm sure a lot of you do. So again, let me know what you think at the ending. Do you have unanswered questions? Where would you like to see the series go? Would you like to see it expanded into some spin-off or companion series told from other perspectives? Definitely, I'll read whatever this author puts out next, and so I hope you all enjoyed this one too. So that's it for this video here. I'd love to know what you think of this book, if you enjoyed it. Love to hear your thoughts down below. Again, remember to keep spoiler tags in your comments if you're going to talk about anything about the later books in the series, because you will have people watching this video who possibly haven't even started the series and are just trying to figure out if it's worth seeing it all the way through. So if you're new to my channel, hopefully you stick around, subscribe, hit the little notification button, drop a comment if you can, and give me a thumbs up if I deserved it. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.